There is a strange and quiet gift buried inside the people the world calls too sensitive. A gift that feels more like a curse until one learns how to bear its weight. It begins early, sometimes in childhood, sometimes in the first heartbreak, sometimes in the moment you realize that other people seem to walk through life half asleep while you can't stop noticing everything. You notice the tremble in someone's voice before they break. You notice the way a room shifts when an unspoken truth hangs heavy in the air. You notice when someone is lying, not because of what they said, but because of what their eyes tried to hide. People think sensitivity is about crying easily or feeling deeply. But those things are only surface signs of something far more ancient, far more powerful. Sensitivity is perception sharpened into a blade. And perception, when awake, becomes prophecy. Sensitive souls see truth before anyone else because they are not distracted by the noise most people use to numb themselves. They sense the direction of an unseen wind. They hear the first crack in a foundation long before the building collapses. They feel the moral temperature of a situation shift before others notice the room has grown cold. It is not that they want to know. It is that they cannot help but know. To feel so much is to see too much, and to see too much is to stand in a world that continually asks you to close your eyes. The gift that won't turn off. Imagine walking through a forest where every sound is amplified, every leaf crunching beneath a creature's foot, every distant crack of a branch, every subtle change in the air pressure before a storm. This is how a sensitive soul walks through human life. They hear emotional thunderstorms before anyone else feels the rain. They sense betrayal before the first lie is spoken. They recognize a soul in pain before that soul can admit it to themselves. And for years, sometimes decades, they think something must be wrong with them. Why am I so reactive? Why do I feel danger when everything looks fine? Why do I sense endings before they happen? No one tells them that what they experience is peripheral vision of the soul, a way of seeing that extends into the emotional and spiritual dark, a subconscious scanning for meaning, for pattern, for truth. Other people see actions. Sensitive souls see intentions. Other people see faces. Sensitive souls see masks. Other people hear words. Sensitive souls hear what the silence is trying to confess. They are tuned to the frequency most people never listen to, and once tuned, they can't simply walk away from it. You cannot unknow what you've seen. You cannot unfeel what you've felt. The curse of being early. There is a reason prophets were rarely welcomed in their own time. A reason shamans, mystics, and visionaries so often walked alone. The truth, when spoken too soon, is indistinguishable from madness. Sensitive souls do not merely feel deeply, they foresee deeply. They know when a relationship is already dying long before the final argument. They know when a friend is drifting into darkness even when that friend insists everything is fine. They know when a job, a city, or a dream has reached its final chapter even while others still celebrate its beginning. This creates a unique kind of loneliness, being right too early. You say something is wrong, but no one believes you. You say something feels off, but others insist you're imagining it. You warn that the path you're walking can't last, and people say you're pessimistic. But time passes, and eventually the truth arrives exactly as you felt it would. And do they thank you for seeing? For noticing? For sensing what they could not? Rarely. More often, they forget that you warned them at all. Because people don't like remembering who saw the truth before they were ready to acknowledge it. Sensitivity as spiritual antenna. Every spiritual tradition hints at this. The soul has senses the body cannot explain. Some call it intuition. Some call it empathy. Some call it the third eye, the inner ear, the heart's intelligence. Science calls it pattern recognition. Art calls it creativity. Mystics call it awareness. Names don't matter. The experience does. Sensitive souls are wired to pick up the emotional and existential radio waves most people don't know how to tune into. Their nervous system is a listening device. Their body becomes an instrument of perception. They walk into a room and know instantly who is hurting. They sense tension hidden beneath polite smiles. They feel when the energy shifts in a conversation, even by a fraction. Others assume they are overreacting. But if anything, they are responding to a reality others cannot yet see. Why the world misunderstands sensitive souls? Because sensitive people are often calm on the outside, the world underestimates the data they are processing on the inside. They don't get overwhelmed because they are weak. They get overwhelmed because they receive information unfiltered. While others hear one thing, they hear 20. While others see the visible, they see the invisible. This is not fragility. It is depth. It is truth gathering at a pace the mind has not been trained to categorize. People misunderstand them because they express truths the world is not ready to feel. Sensitive souls speak the language of emotional weather patterns, noticing the rising storm long before the clouds appear. And ironically, the world often accuses them of creating the very problems they're warning about. You're imagining things. You're being dramatic. You're overanalyzing. But what sounds like overanalysis in the moment becomes obvious reality later. Sensitive souls are punished for their accuracy. The burden of knowing. If you've ever been the person who sees reality before it reveals itself, then you know the strange ache that comes with early awareness. It feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, watching people walk toward it, smiling, unaware of the drop just a few steps ahead. You warn them. They laugh. You insist. They dismiss you. And then the fall. The shock. The aftermath. Suddenly, your sensitivity looks like wisdom. But wisdom given too soon still feels like burden. Sensitive souls carry truths early, sometimes too early to be helpful. They walk around with knowledge that cannot be spoken without being misunderstood. So they learn to keep it inside, to swallow their perceptions, to withhold their instincts. This is how their sensitivity turns inward and becomes turmoil. The world says, "Stop being so sensitive." But their sensitivity is not something they do. It is something they are. To turn it off would be to amputate part of their humanity. Seeing truth in pain. One of the hardest parts of being sensitive is the ability to see the truth hidden inside someone's suffering. A person says they're angry, you know they're actually afraid. A person says they're fine, you feel they're on the edge of collapse. A person hides behind arrogance, you sense their aching insecurity. You see the wounded child behind the destructive adult. You see the longing behind the cruelty. You see the grief behind the indifference. And because you can see it, you often try to save them. Even when they do not want to be saved. Even when they are incapable of admitting they need saving. Sensitive souls fall in love with potential and ignore the present. They see what a person could be, and sometimes forget who the person actually is. This is how wounds happen. Not because they misread people, but because they saw too clearly, too compassionately. The tragedy is not that they were wrong. It's that they were right in a way that couldn't be lived out. Sensitive souls see the most human part of everyone else, yet often feel unseen themselves. The hidden strength in sensitivity. Despite all of this, the overwhelm, the loneliness, the emotional saturation, sensitive souls possess a power that is quietly revolutionary. They see the cracks in society's mask. They see the vulnerabilities others hide. They see the truths that need to be spoken but aren't. Sensitive people are the early warning systems of humanity. They are the canaries in the coal mine, feeling the toxic air first, sounding the alarm before danger becomes visible. And this early perception is not weakness. It is the frontier of evolution. Humanity progresses because someone senses what others have not yet noticed. Sensitive souls feel earthquakes before the ground moves. They sense cultural shifts before they become movements. They intuit emotional patterns before they become behavior. They do not simply see truth before anyone else, they feel it in their bones. There comes a moment in the life of every sensitive soul when they realize something profoundly disorienting. They have been living on a different timeline from the people around them. While others move through life responding to events as they happen, sensitive souls respond to events that have not yet occurred, but soon will. It's as if their inner world exists a few seconds, a few days, or a few years ahead of the world others inhabit. And that gap, that spiritual time lag, is the source of both their suffering and their strange power. To see truth early is to live in a constant state of déjà vu. You watch situations unfold exactly as you sensed they would. You hear words spoken that you predicted long before they were uttered. You see relationships end in the very shape you felt in your body months earlier. Most people interpret the world through hindsight. Sensitive souls interpret the world through foresight. And foresight, when untrained, feels like madness. The loneliness of early truth. There is a particular kind of silence that sensitive souls learn to hold. A silence carved from all the moments they tried to share what they saw, only to be dismissed, mocked, or misunderstood. You try to tell a friend that their relationship is draining their spirit, but they think you're jealous. You tell a coworker their anxiety is pointing towards something deeper, but they think you're analyzing them. You try to express a subtle shift in energy, a feeling that something big is approaching, but people think you're catastrophizing. Eventually, you learn to keep your perceptions to yourself. Not because they aren't true, but because they are true too early. You become a keeper of unspoken knowledge, a witness to invisible patterns, a silent guardian of emotional weather. This is the loneliness no one warns you about. The loneliness of knowing what others are not ready to understand. Sensitive souls are like windows in a world that prefers walls. Why truth arrives early for sensitive souls. To understand why sensitive people see truth before others, we must look at how they perceive reality. Sensitive souls do not rely on conscious reasoning alone. Their perception is layered. Emotional intuition, subtle energetic awareness, micro-expressions, patterns of behavior, nervous system resonance, atmospheric sensing, symbolic interpretation, body-based instinct. This is not magic, though it feels like it. It is a heightened form of awareness that integrates multiple data streams before the mind can explain them. Where others see small details, sensitive souls see a tapestry. Where others see an isolated moment, sensitive souls see an arc. Where others see coincidence, sensitive souls see patterns converging. This depth of perception means they often catch the first ripple of a wave before anyone else notices there is water at all. The unbearable skill of feeling people's true nature. Here is a truth few sensitive souls say aloud. They can feel the real version of a person, even when that person is hiding from themselves. A sensitive person can sit across from someone and sense what the person is afraid to admit, what they secretly long for, the wounds they carry, the loneliness beneath their laughter, the lie behind their confidence, the weight behind their silence, the motive behind their anger. They feel the inner child behind the adult persona. They sense the heartbreak behind the bravado. They see the yearning behind the indifference. And this creates a paradox. Sensitive souls often love people not for who they act like, but for who they really are beneath the layers. This is why they stay longer than they should, give more than they can, and forgive more than most people deem reasonable. They see the truth inside a person and assume that this truth will eventually rise to the surface. Sometimes it does. Often it doesn't. And the sensitive soul learns, painfully, that seeing someone's potential is not the same as living in their reality. When sensitivity becomes a spiritual calling, there is a moment when the suffering of sensitivity transforms into purpose. It happens quietly, like a rustling of leaves before dawn. You begin to understand that your deep perception wasn't a flaw, it was preparation. Sensitive souls are often called into roles like healers, therapists, artists, visionaries, guides, spiritual teachers, protectors, writers, peacekeepers, boundary breakers, innovators. Why? Because they can sense the unseen threads that bind human experience. They understand emotional maps intuitively. They feel what the collective refuses to feel. A sensitive soul in their power becomes almost luminous, not from superiority, but from understanding. Their gift becomes medicine. Their perception becomes direction. Their intuition becomes clarity for others. But this only happens once they stop hiding from themselves. The turning point, when sensitivity meets strength. Most sensitive people spend the early parts of their lives trying to armor themselves. They build walls, shrink their truths, and apologize for their intensity. Eventually, they reach a breaking point, a moment when they realize that the pain of suppressing who they are is greater than the pain of being misunderstood. This is the beginning of transformation. The sensitive soul learns. Not every truth needs to be spoken. Not every person is ready to be seen. Not every feeling is theirs to absorb. Not every energy is theirs to carry. Not every intuition is a demand to act. Not every calling requires sacrifice. They begin to discern. What am I feeling because it's mine? What am I feeling because I absorbed it? What am I seeing because it's truth? What am I seeing because it's fear? What must be spoken? What must be released? What must be silently understood? This discernment turns sensitivity into power. The world needs sensitive souls, but not burned-out ones. There is a reason sensitive souls withdraw from society when overwhelmed. Their nervous systems are built to detect fine threads, not to be flooded with noise. To protect themselves, they must learn spiritual and emotional boundaries. Stepping away from chaos. Resting before exhaustion. Saying no without guilt. Choosing environments that nourish them. Honoring the need for solitude. Cleansing emotional residue. Allowing themselves softness, not hardness. Sensitive souls do not need to toughen up. They need to root down. A tree does not become stronger by resisting the wind. It becomes stronger by growing deeper roots. Sensitivity is the leaves. Strength is the roots. Both are needed. Why sensitive souls are rarely wrong. One of the greatest gifts and burdens of sensitivity is accuracy. Not perfection, not flawless intuition, but a pattern of being right in ways that feel eerie. Sensitive souls often predict breakups, breakthroughs, emotional shifts, betrayals, turning points, hidden feelings, future outcomes, spiritual awakenings. Who is safe? Who is dangerous? Who is pretending? Who is quietly collapsing? This accuracy doesn't come from judgment. It comes from resonance. Sensitive souls feel truth before they understand it. And truth once felt cannot be unfelt. The cost of being the one who sees. To see truth early is to inhabit a burden few recognize. You see where a relationship is headed, what a person refuses to acknowledge, the future shape of a situation, the inevitable consequences of unhealed wounds, the lie beneath the surface, the ending already written in the beginning. And you must hold this knowledge quietly, compassionately, without forcing, without controlling, without collapsing. This is emotional mastery. This is spiritual maturity. This is what sensitivity looks like when it becomes wisdom. You are not broken, you are ahead. If you are someone who feels deeply, senses subtly, understands intuitively, sees the truth early, gets overwhelmed by noise, absorbs emotions, predicts outcomes without logic, reads people without effort, struggles to explain what you just know, then you are not lost. You are not too much. You are not weak. You are ahead. You are built for the unseen world, the world beneath the world. You are a translation point between what is felt and what is known, between what is hidden and what is revealed. You are the bridge, and bridges feel everything that crosses them.